Before I get another ad because of my rambling, we're going to get right on into Twig. Welcome to Twig, your weekly geekly family-friendly news show that tackles everything from Hi-Fi Rush being rescued to Borderlands flopping with some games in between. Welcome to Season 4. I am Nerd Pastor Nate, and I'm really the pastor of Checkpoint Church, a church designed with nerds, geeks, and gamers in mind that puts out this wonderful podcast of nerdy news proportions. If you're listening on the podcast version of the show, be sure to give us a good review. Click that like button if you're over on YouTube, or come and listen live on Twitch every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, no longer 8 p.m. Eastern. So take note of that, all of our live listeners. We're going live an hour later. If you want to ask me about that, come join us on a stream and I will happily tell you. But with that, we're going to begin our show as we always do and always have with our What Have You Been Watching and Playing and Reading this past weekend. And I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves and share theirs first.
Not watching really much or reading too much, but playing some BG3 modded this time with my boyfriend, and a teeny bit of Hellblade 2 because I got back into that. So,
did you say your name? I feel like I missed that.
Oh, I am the Mayfly. I am so sorry. I did not say that. Hello.
I'm glad you're getting into Hellblade. I hope that you're enjoying it. It is a very short play, so on the bright side, even a teeny bit, you probably made it through a good chunk of the experience.
Yeah.
And I know you super enjoyed the first game. I did not. I think the second game sort of was middling reviews, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great experience. It wasn't the first, but didn't need to be. It was his own thing. And I think that is where I wound up landing, was like really good own thing, and kept going in the ways that the devs wanted to. And that's all you can ask for.
That's the vibe I'm getting right now with it. So we'll see. Yeah.
Yes. Good. All right. Well, do let us know in the chat what you've been watching, playing, and reading if you are listening, or down in the comment section down below if you're watching after the fact or what have you. I have been catching up on all of the anime that I missed out on because I just was out of the country for a while. And so trying to get back into the beginning of the season, I have officially started watching the Deer anime, which is ridiculous and absurd, and I really love it. All I saw was the song on TikTok trending all the time, and now I know some context behind it, and it is exactly as absurd as I expected it would be. Really enjoying it. I did finish Steins Gate, the anime, so I played the visual novel last year. Finally decided to sit down and binge to the anime because I'd had enough of like a gap between them. I love it just as much, maybe the game a little bit more, just because it was able to go a little bit deeper, but the anime was exceptional and told the story in a really succinct package. And then the Let's Play that I'm currently going through over on YouTube is Crystal, AAHH, like in between the crystal, and she is playing Persona 4. This is my first time experiencing the full Persona 4 story. I've played some of it, I've watched some of it in the Let's Play, but this is the whole story. And I gotta say, compared to P3 and P5, P5 remains to be my favorite, but I like this one more than P3 so far. We'll see where it goes in the end. I have been playing on Gamepass Dungeons of Hinterberg, which is a Zelda-like experience with the dungeons and then the overworld mixed with some Persona elements. And I like it so far. I think it's not exactly like 10 out of 10 by any means, but it definitely has a lot of really nice elements. If anything, I just don't really like the character design they went for. It kind of takes me out of it. I've never really liked games that do this kind of design. And so there's that weirdness, but I'm about 5 hours in. I'm a couple dungeons in. I think the dungeons are really clever. And yeah, I wish that the writing was a little bit better and the character designs were a little bit better. And so that's kind of where I think I'm going to land with probably a solid 7. We'll see how much more I'm able to put into it. On the other hand, Zenless Zone Zero has immaculate character designs and is just so good of a polished experience. I've been enjoying it. I did finish the story there, and now we're getting into some of the end game content before they do, I think, a big release either today or tomorrow. I'm not sure when it comes out, so that's exciting. And then I've been reading I Cheerfully Refuse, which is a book that is coming out this year that is pretty exceptional. I highly recommend it if you like fiction writing. Cheerfully Refuse, very, very good. Not a fantasy at all, very grounded in reality, but just a good old-fashioned story. I would say a modern classic. And then I've also been reading Playing at a Distance, which I got from a Humble Bundle that did a bunch of like think pieces on video games. And this one has to do with, should video games be interactive at all? And so that's an interesting question because I do play a whole lot of visual novels and I really love walking sims. And so it's kind of like getting at what my motif of gameplay is in general. So it's good stuff so far. Let's read through the chat a little bit, see what other folks are playing. Phoenix, watching not too much. Just finished Righteous Gemstones Classic. Of course, Deadpool and Wolverine. Reading not much, playing College Football 25 and Mafia. Occasionally some GTA 5. Sugar Haiku has been watching a random bit of everything. Reading 6 Crimson Cranes, which is our book club book this month. And playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is, as you know, one of my favorites. I think it's so good. Cam backs me up on Persona 4 Golden being really good. Coyote reading Teen Wolf fanfic. Watch some Alf. Wow, such a classic. Real throwback there. Started Tower of God before Crunchyroll got canceled, playing DMC 5 relentlessly. Love to see it. And Cam does also affirm that currently Zenless Zone Zero is in the middle of maintenance. And Perry finished Braiding Sweetgrass, which I think is one that he particularly enjoyed and had a lot to chew on. So I've been following his weekly kind of drop-ins on Watch Play Read that we do every Friday over on the Discord server. So I'm adding that one to my list for sure with how much he enjoyed it. So do let us know what you've been watching, playing, and reading. But we're going to get into our first headline of the night, which is one that I was elated to see, but I do certainly have some concerns nonetheless about like what this means and all the sorts of that stuff. But Krafton, the publisher behind PUBG, has acquired Tango Gameworks and the Hi-Fi Rush IP from Xbox, ensuring that the studio will no longer be shut down. This acquisition allows Tango Gameworks to continue developing the Hi-Fi Rush IP and explore new projects. Krafton has committed to supporting the team's innovative work while ensuring a smooth transition in collaboration with Xbox and ZeniMax. The acquisition comes after Microsoft's earlier decision to close several Bethesda studios, including Tango Gameworks, despite the success of Hi-Fi Rush, which was a breakout hit with over 2 million players and highly positive reviews. This is one, like I said, I'm conflicted on because I don't think this should have happened in the first place. And I do think that it's still a bummer to see all of the rest of the studios left on the cutting room floor. Like it echoes what we already knew, and that was that this was a terrible decision because of the fact that Hi-Fi Rush had been the golden boy and had made such a like stir in the gaming environment. Like this was one that it didn't make sense for them to cut in the first place. And so, of course, somebody was going to come in and swoop it. And also, when was the last time you heard about PUBG? So they need a winner. They're needing something to jump into. Yeah. What did you think about this one?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Cam. I'm a little scared. I'm happy that the studio like got them the IP and that it's not dead anymore. But the publisher that did the purchase, not maybe the best.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I'm happy that it's not, dead in the water anymore, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's curious. I feel like I remember whenever all this was happening that some of the Tango Gameworks folks were like, we were all like geared up and ready to work on a next game to figure something else out. Like, I don't think they had anything on paper, but they had been like daydreaming and they were ready to get going. And then everything came down that came down. Yeah. Yeah. I'm still disappointed in just the whole decision between this major merger and all of this big buyout that we saw between Activision and Microsoft and ZeniMax and all of these different things. Like, I think we saw so much and it was so much turmoil, and it's like, this is one that feels obvious, but there's still a whole lot of really important companies that maybe didn't have something that had the echoes and the ramifications of Hi-Fi Rush that didn't deserve to get cut either, just because of a decision that was made by the C-suite. So it is a disappointment. Yeah, it's almost like major corpo mega mergers are bad, and we just keep hearing more and more about them. This isn't in the news tonight because it came out a little bit too late, but over in our Discord, Perry did just drop the news about Paramount and that they are cutting their TV side of things, I believe. And like I recall, I think in the final episode of TWIG, we talked about Paramount getting bought out, right? So like every merger comes with this collateral that we just keep seeing and these echoes that we keep hearing about, and I'm just exhausted. I'm exhausted by it. So yes, do let us know your thoughts on this one, and if you're excited for what might be ahead, and hopefully this will be able to pull Krafton up into the publishing world and get some attention on it. So Time will tell. On to our next news story for tonight. Deadlock, Valve's upcoming new game Deadlock, is garnering significant attention, even though it hasn't been officially announced yet. Described as a blend between a hero shooter like Overwatch and a MOBA with lane-based gameplay akin to Dota 2, Deadlock is set in a fantasy steampunk world. Despite the lack of a formal reveal, the game is already in early access with over 18K players participating in playtests. This access is granted through an invite system on Steam, and although details are scarce due to strict NDAs, early player feedback has been positive, with particular praise for one standout character. Given Valve's recent history of stealth releases, an official announcement might soon be on the horizon. Have you seen anything about this one, Mayfly? Do you have any? Is this in your orbit?
Some stuff. It's like semi in my orbit, but not really.
I think it is the most milquetoast thing I've ever seen.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Is I'm looking at it and I'm like, it just looks boring. It looks like every other thing that, it looks like Valorant. It looks like Overwatch. It looks like it just looks like all of the other things.
Yeah. It's a rough time for it to be coming out alongside of Zero Mini Shooter. Alongside Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals is currently really like teasing that release and is on the horizon. So it's like maybe they're waiting to see how that does before they do any kind of official announcement or anything. Maybe they're waiting for opening night live next week. I don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to do it, but I looked at it and I just couldn't care less. The characters didn't look very inspiring. The stuff that has been leaked and is out there, it just kind of looks like the same old. Like it's like lanes are nothing new. We're not dealing with anything too new. Like there was literally an announcement for Dragon Ball Z making a MOBA as well, and I was equally excited. Like it was like it's over and done. I enjoyed the Pokemon MOBA, and like that's pretty much where I fall. Is like if it's not the hyper popular, most recognizable mascot of Pikachu, I don't really care about what's coming out. So maybe we have somebody that is super excited for this game and has been a playtester and is so excited. And if you're out there, let us know, because I would love to hear your experience and that you just really are gearing up for this Valve game. I will say it's always exciting to hear that Valve is making something. So that's interesting in and of itself. We'll probably hear something soon. I have a feeling, like I said, I think it's one of two scenarios. I really think it's either Marvel Rivals that's holding off the announcement, or maybe they really are waiting for opening night live. So maybe we'll hear something then. But until then, all we know is that this is a game that will exist, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Into our next bit of news.
Speaking of lackluster, the Borderlands movie had a rough start, earning just $16.5 million worldwide in its opening weekend and facing harsh criticism. Shocker. Including a 3 out of 10 review from IGN. Despite this, Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford, who was an executive producer on the film, took the backlash in stride, highlighting the strong fan love for the Borderlands video games and hinting at exciting new developments for the franchise. While the movie struggled, Gearbox remains focused on delivering something exceptional with the next Borderlands game. I don't know personally anybody who is surprised that this did not do well. Because when a lot of us were looking at the poster, we were like, okay, this casting probably fits, but the rest of this probably doesn't. You could just tell by the casting for a lot of it. So I don't know. And that was just in the Checkpoint Discord. We were just talking about it when the poster dropped, right? Like, I don't know.
I'm in a weird spot with this one. I have never played a Borderlands game beyond like an hour. I played, a little bit of time. And so I have no real attachment to this universe. I have no real attachment to these characters. All that I know is that they have the cool, like, Sly Cooper cell shading in the game. And like, that's pretty much all I know about this universe. I never played any of the Tiny Tina's games. I seriously have no nothing. And so I plan on seeing it. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters or if I'll end up watching it online whenever it inevitably gets pulled from theaters and posted into a digital format real quick. But I plan on watching it in some capacity, and I'm very curious to see if I get something out of it. Whereas people that actually care about the universe, even a little bit, like, do not like this in the slightest. I do think 3 out of 10 is abysmal. And so I'm worried that it's just plain old bad. But I do remember, like, there have been things in the past that have gotten similar ratings that I have thought were actually not that bad if you don't care. Like, if this is your first experience with this universe, they're probably fine movies, but this could be the total opposite scenario, because I've also seen some real stinkers. So I'm curious. And I think that if nothing else, I have like that little air of like, ooh, this could be interesting, because maybe I'll end up super enjoying this when nobody else does. Or maybe I'll see it and be like, nope, this is just bad. Yeah. Madam Web is a great call out, right? Like, that's an instance of one that actually was bad.
I own all of the games, but the only one I've ever played and thoroughly enjoyed is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. But does that surprise anybody with my affinity for tabletops and D&D? Absolutely not. It's just not. That surprises literally no one. I love that game. I have close to 100 hours in it. I was teaching a friend how to play it a couple weeks ago. Like, I'm obsessed with it. I just couldn't get into the other ones. I own them all. I just couldn't. I could do it, but that one stuck with me for some reason, the obvious reason. But I don't know.
I'm curious to know how the casting actually lines up. I've heard a lot of bad things about the script. I do not particularly enjoy most of the movies that Kevin Hart is in. I like his stand-up, but anytime that he's in a movie, I'm like knowing that's not going to be a very good one. Jamie Lee Curtis, I'm a fan of. The only thing I know the one actress from is from the Barbie movie as the daughter, and so that's the only thing I know her from. And then Jack Black, I think, is Claptrap. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And like, that's a random pull. I have no idea if that fits that character at all, but I like Jack Black, and I can't imagine that he delivers a bad performance. It's probably just bad lines that he delivers the best he can.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how quickly this one does actually get pulled. I am curious to know, does anybody know, did it get a popcorn bucket? Because everybody's getting a popcorn bucket nowadays, and I'm just wondering, this feels like something that PR would have tried to work with Regal Cinemas to make a popcorn bucket about it, because I'm telling you, I saw that, this is going to be coming up a little bit later as well, but I saw that Alien Romulus, whatever, is getting a popcorn bucket. And I'm like, why? Why is everything getting a popcorn bucket now? I swear, it was like there was one, popcorn bucket with the worm, and it got everybody up in a tizzy, and now everybody's got to have one.
Everybody needs one.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So we'll see if this one makes it into theaters long enough to even sell those buckets. But yeah, it is a bummer to always see whenever an adaptation flops, but maybe something will come out of the universe nonetheless. And again, they did say there's something exciting with the next Borderlands game. So that's good enough to know that at least they're still playing in the universe and have plans for the future. With that, we're going to get into something new that we're trying tonight, which is going to be a main topic. So we're going to try something that'll be a little bit more extensive and a little bit more random. It won't always necessarily be news. It could just be things that are going on. And then we're going to try and talk about it within the realm of, we are a real life church. And so we have 3 rules that we follow over in our Discord server. We have 3 things that we try and include into all the things that we say. And that is to do good, do no harm, and strive to grow. So we're going to try and think about these things, or whatever news item that we have, from that realm of how can we take this and apply it to our lives in a way that'll do good, do no harm, and strive to grow. So we'll see how it'll work, but this one in particular is from a recent thing that sort of shook my world, at least, as being a new addendum to like my top 10 favorite videos on the internet in general, and it has to do with D&D. So for those of you that are fans of John Bernthal, who is the Punisher, he has a podcast called the Real Ones Podcast, and he recently had Deborah Ann Wall of a lot of things. She's in a lot of stuff. I think I first remember her from True Blood, but there's a whole lot of great stuff that she has been in. And she also happens to be a major tabletop nerd and absolutely loves DMing and has some, I don't really keep up with the actual play scene, but I think she has multiple credits at this point of being both a cast member and also a regular DM or GM accordingly. And so she was on his podcast. It's about an hour and a half. If you like podcasts, I'm sure it's a great one. I plan on giving it a full listen, but this clip made it into my orbit. And so we're going to talk about it a little bit for tonight. And so this is a conversation that went on between them about D&D, where John Bernthal is somebody who has never played D&D, and Deborah Ann Wall is somebody who is very much affiliated with it and loves it. So have you seen this clip, Mayfly? Because I might have you hop over and watch it if you have not.
I don't think I have.
Okay. Well, I'm going to recommend you watch it. I think you would love it. It's going to be in 2 parts. So we're going to watch one part, talk about it, and then the second part. And I've clipped it up just a little bit. So
Okay.
I am going to play that, and we're going to see how all of that works out. And hopefully this will be a fun new thing that we can do here on the show. So I will see you on the other side of part 1 of playing D&D with Deborah Ann Wall in a conversation with John Bernthal on Real Ones.
I don't know what Dungeons and Dragons. Like I don't. It's like a game, but like you imagine you're like in the game, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's just a collaborative storytelling with some characters.
And you tell the story.
Yeah, I'm a dungeon master, so generally I've written an arc and created a world, and then players explore it. You want to play D&D?
I mean, I'll try. I mean, what do you think?
No,
I'd
like
be able to do it?
literally right now.
Sure.
You've got a bow strapped to your back, a sword and a dagger at your
Okay.
hilt, right? So you're walking through the woods. It's dark. It's at night. Almost no moonlight is coming through. You hear a crack off in the distance. Something large stepped on a branch. What would you do?
First thing. How far away is the crack?
Give me a perception check. So then you roll dice and we'd see how perceptive you are. Let's say you roll a 13.
Okay.
And you're pretty perceptive, so you have a +3 to that. That's 16. So I know, okay, 16, that's pretty perceptive. You think it's about 20 feet away.
Okay. It's about 20 feet away. I think I take out my bow first.
Yeah. So you take a bow, you're readied, you're
Yeah.
aimed, you're
Right at where the spot's coming. Yeah.
okay. Slowly creeping towards you, suddenly into view, a little bit of eye shine in the darkness. You see an owl bear. This is a 10, 15 foot tall monster. It looks like an owl, but it has the body of a bear. It opens its beak and squawks at you. What do you do?
Have I ever met an owl bear before? Like, are owl bears?
We could do a history check. So this is D&D. You're playing D&D.
I mean, a history check.
So a history check would be like, in your past, in
Yeah.
your history, have you
Okay,
experienced
so how do
this
I check?
before?
Yeah, let's
You
check
would roll
that.
a dice. Let's say
Okay.
you have a low history. You roll a 13, but you have a -3. That's a 10. So no, you've never met an owl bear in your life. You have no idea whether it's threatening or not, but it is squawking at you.
I'd be like, yo, are you my friend or are you my foe?
Fantastic. You speak to it.
Yeah, I try.
Give me an animal handling check. So you'd roll another one.
Okay. So there you go. That is part 1 of the video, and hopefully that came through and everybody was able to catch it. So again, this is a bigger conversation that has taken place between these two. This is towards the end, and he mentions, you play D&D. Let's talk about that a little bit. And she gets right into it with like, do you want to play? And he's like, yeah, I'll play with you sometime. And she's like, no, we're playing right now. And so there's some awesome things that I want to highlight from this part of the conversation before we look at part 2. But I think that this highlights so well the importance of a DM. And so that's the first thing that I want to really talk about is like the fact that she is so incredibly, and the word that I put down here is literally graceful. Like she is grace filled. What she's providing is not control. She's not providing a narrow pathway. She's not providing anything other than telling the story and then letting him play within that world. And so first reaction before we keep going, what did you think, Mayfly?
I really enjoyed that, especially as somebody who just started DMing and GMing pretty recently. It's really fun to see like that look in somebody's eyes when you do something like that for the first time. Oh, thank you, Perry. One of my players has never played a tabletop before. So like that look in his eyes when he was like, okay, so what does this mean? What do I do now? How far away is this thing from me? Like, to see that again as a GM and as a first time GM is a lot of fun, and to kind of re-experience that was a lot of fun for me, and just to see how she approaches the conversation and the situation, to immediately, like, he's intrigued. Immediately he wants to know what's going on. Immediately he wants to know, how does this game work? How does this system work? And that's with Candela. None of my players have played this before, and I have never GM'd it before, but that's how I felt. Is like immediately everybody was like, okay, Mayfly, I'm intrigued. I want to know the system. I want to know how it works. Tell me how it works and tell me where we are. And that was nice for me.
Yeah. It's affirming, right? To know that you're doing something right and to see how it affects people.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the sort of ethereal experience of getting to watch these two is like you're seeing how much fun he's having in the way that she is controlling the conversation loosely. And you're seeing how much fun she's having. Like she is so genuinely in this and having fun telling the surroundings and then seeing how he plays within that. And so it's so hilarious to me, you know, as she continues to explain and as he's like wanting to talk to the owlbear, like that's amazing and hilarious that somebody would want to try to do that first and foremost. And so she gets joy out of that and he gets joy out of that. I think what's really fascinating to me is what she chooses to offer him. And so, you know, not only describing the environment and that kind of stuff, but a common mistake of somebody trying to explain D&D to somebody is to tell them about character sheets right away, to tell them about like, well, let's have a 0 session. Like as soon as you start getting into the minutia of it, people flatline. They do not care. But instead, she like has done enough of this to know what he needs to know, where is he, and what does he have. Like that's all that he needed to know. And literally he was looking around, right? And like pulled the bow out. That's all he needed to get into character. He didn't need a name and a history and arcana. He didn't need all of that stuff. Instead, all he needed to know was where is he right now and what does he have on him? And then let's tell the story. And I thought it was so good. And I thought it was great that he like kept it going. You can even tell at one point, she's like wrapping it up. She's like, oh, you see an owlbear. And then like, what else is it? And then he's like, well, tell me about this owlbear.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's encouraging to see. And so, yeah, I wanted to highlight in that first one, DMs being literal like beings of grace, people that are trying to guide someone through a story. And I think that that is something that we'll talk about again towards the end of this one. But first, I want to show you part 2. So this is getting into a little bit more of the details as John Bernthal does begin to get curious about, okay, you're saying all of these checks and you're talking about numbers. Tell me more about what that's all about. So I'm going to go ahead and play into our second part for everyone to enjoy.
Based on your character sheet that you've created, you're going to be good and bad at different things.
Who I create the sheet?
You could, or I could, or you could get a pre-made sheet,
Why
that
don't
kind
you
of
just
thing.
make your sheet that you're great at everything?
Because, you know, if you're a wizard who's in school studying books to learn magic, you're probably not spending that much time in the gym. Versus if you're, you know, a knight who goes out and slays dragons, you know, maybe you're socially awkward and don't know how to talk to people. So your
So
charisma
is it within your
status
interest to like not be great at everything?
You want flaws. Flaws make good story.
But is the goal to win?
No.
What's
There
the
is
goal?
no goals to tell a great story.
Tell a great story.
And there might be arcs of like one big bad is like hurting innocent people and there are monsters to fight. So you're motivated to be a hero. And that's what I love about D&D is practicing being a hero. It's practicing protecting the innocent and stopping the bad guy and standing up for your fellow players. It's the greatest game ever created. And it's just collaborative storytelling. You just sit at a table. It's as close as you can get to when you were 7 on the play yard, just like making up games and stories. And I love it. And I will do it until I die. It's that one weird space where we're all nerdy.
Great stuff. Yes, it's so good. And she says some fantastic quotes in there that I definitely want to call out of playing the game, practicing being a hero, like Perry called out. That is a fantastic concept and a fantastic thing. And then right at the very end, the thing that I wanted to call out as well is it is that one weird space where we're all nerdy. And so the way that I would phrase that is it is a safe space. It is a third space that is also safe for all the folks in that place. So good stuff there, talking about the character sheet and talking about what it actually means and what it has to do with any of it and how we're actually doing what we're doing. And then the point of the game not being to win, but instead being to tell a good story. And what an honest question from John there of, so what are we winning? And she's like, no, we're not. That's not where we're going. What was your reaction to that one, Mayfly?
It was so good, and to bounce off what Cam was saying in chat again, like D&D is the name brand, but the more that I branch out, the more that I experience, like there is a tabletop for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like Candela is so RP heavy that we spend 90% of playtime and sessions RPing. And the other 5%, you know, we are in combat, we are doing other things, but, you know, if you do it right, you do it well, and you have a good table, it's a whole heck of a lot of fun. And there's so many different types of tabletops, and there's so many different ways to tell a story, and there's so many, different ways to go about it and do it. And I think everybody should try it at least once. It's so fun.
I totally agree. And there are a lot of different ways to do it. She kind of mentioned a concept that a lot of D&D and tabletop fans would know well, that me and my friends always leaned harder into, and that was the rule of cool. And so a lot of times the story takes precedent over the dice roll. And so, you still want to respect the dice, and you're going to play as crunchy of a game as you feel like playing. Yeah. But at the end of the day, having the table rule of knowing how hard are we going to play this rule of cool, a lot of my GMs would be like, the cooler you can describe this scenario, the more likely I am to let you just bypass the dice roll. And not everybody's going to be on board with that, but there are going to be people that are on board with that. And so that just shows that there's a group for everybody. There's a game for everybody. There's a table that's going to appeal to some folks better. There's a style that's going to appeal to some folks better. And so it's just important to really ask yourself, what do you want to experience in your practice of being a hero? What speaks best to you in your method of becoming that character? So yeah, I love that. And I love the concepts. And I do think there was even I think Derek White maybe shared this with me, Reverend Derek White, who does a lot of D&D stuff with pastors. And I think he had a table rule. I could be mixing up stories of where he didn't allow evil characters in the kind of, what is it called? Help me with this, the alignment chart. So he wouldn't allow evil characters in the alignment chart. And so that was a table rule that he had bringing forward. But I think that the best examples of those characters are going to still be storytellers. And you got to make sure, how can you make sure that your character isn't a stereotype of your alignment, but instead you use your alignment to tell a good story and to still bring forward your character, whether that's a hero or an anti-hero or however you want to define it. You're still an agent of change, and you're still experiencing something, because even people that have an evil alignment should be experiencing something in the midst of a good story. So I thought that was great. Yes, I want to call out, what can we do to do good, to do no harm, and to strive to grow? I want to encourage, if you're in the chat right now, to think through that as well with me. If you have any things that stood out to you, I can call out some that stood out to me. I sort of already have. You've heard them throughout what I've been saying. But an example of doing good, that means how are we actively doing something good in what we do? I think that the example of grace and a generous spirit of a DM and GM as exhibited by Deborah Amwal was exceptional. Not controlling the situation, but instead allowing somebody to explore something for themselves is not easy, but it is vitally important, both in our lives as game players, in our lives as human beings, in our lives in relationships. And as my role as a pastor, I take that very seriously. I don't want to control the conversation and exert authority. Instead, I would so much rather walk with somebody in the midst of their journey. So that's an example of doing good. An example of doing no harm. These are ways that we seek out to avoid harm. We try to avoid any kind of harm that can be done, hopefully before it is done. And I think this has to do with the concept of what she said at the very, very end. It's that one weird space where we can all be nerdy. That is a radical sense of welcome that we obviously stole as Checkpoint. If you've heard the story of Checkpoint and how we came to be, it wasn't designed after D&D, but it was designed after Comic-Con. And I said that we need to learn from the nerds, because the nerds are so much better at welcoming people than the church is. And so we need to figure out how can we learn from them and not vice versa. And so I think that's an example of doing no harm, is radical hospitality and radical welcome within our spaces, so that someone shouldn't have to say, this is the one space where I don't have to be, or where I can be a nerd, where I can let my mask down and be who I really am. We need to be doing that as the church. We need to be doing that in our friend groups and as people that are trying to love others. And then the question I want to ask you as an example of strive to grow is really taking both of these in tandem and saying, if we're applying the rules of a DM and GM, how can we use those to be better human beings? How can we just be better in life? How can we have better relationships? How can we have better friendships? How can we have better lives with the people that we just meet, with the NPCs on the street? What can we do to be the best possible person? How can we offer more grace, more generosity, and more welcome in what we do?
A lot of good stuff in the chat as well from Perry, just echoing kind of that this is all just a great example of how to present heavier, nuanced topics in conversation and commanding with grace. And And it's true. And you made a good point of Checkpoint as an environment is so open and so welcoming. And how do we implement that in the traditional church space? Because it has not traditionally been, as open and welcoming as, we get so many people on the Discord being like, I finally feel like I can be myself here. How do we make every space like that?
Mm-hmm. How do we take that space with us as
Yeah.
who we are in the world?
Yeah.
And yes, Checkpoint should be a welcome space, but we are also becoming the body of Christ as people in this space. And so we get to then be that in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Cam, also for calling that out. I have gone back and forth between DM and GM and named both of them.
I did, but I did it as well. It's just
because
I'm
we're
a
talking
GM.
about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is the difference there. DM is going to be Dungeon Master. GM is Game Master. DM is typically referring to Dungeons and Dragons proper.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are probably others that have tried to take it, but as Cam mentions, Wizard of the Coast maybe like, no, we're not gonna let that happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes in those ways, but I think most people will respond to either one and understand what you're saying, and that could be another example of grace, providing grace to folks that might call you the wrong one. But do let us know if you liked this segment, if you enjoyed this conversation. They won't all be about a podcast. Some of them will be about news. Some of them will be about big events. But I would love to hear what you thought about this kind of longer segment conversation with a focus around our do good, do no harm, and strive to grow mentality. Try and weigh in. Let me know how you liked this segment in particular. And I appreciate you sitting with us through it. If it wasn't for you, I appreciate you even more for sticking it out. But with that, we are going to get into everybody's favorite segment of the show, Cryptic Critiques. It is time for everyone's favorite game, Cryptic Critiques. This is the game show of bad reviews for beloved games, and I have scoured the internet to find 3 of the funniest bad reviews that I could for popular games. I'll deliver them one at a time to our special guest of the week. Play along with us, see if you can figure it out before we get to clue number 3. If you're watching, remember not to send your guesses until the guest gets to give their final choice at the end of the 3rd prompt. But you can always type it in the chat. Just don't hit enter until we get that final guess so that we don't give any clues before Mayfly or whoever is with us might be ready. Are you prepared for these prompts, Mayfly?
Yes.
We're going to do it. We're going to see how it goes. I think you got this one in the bag. We're going to find out together. Number 1, wonder if I can make this jump, says the apparently timid woman who left behind a pile of dead bodies. I wonder if I can make this jump.
It's a Tomb Raider. It's a Tomb Raider. It's knowing you, it's 2013 because it's my favorite.
All right, so you're feeling that. You're feeling Tomb Raider. Do you want to stick through the rest of them? Let's see if it changes with number 2.
Okay.
Well, we got a pretty solid guess on number 1 right away. Number 2, press A to pretend you're helping the movie, the game. Press A to pretend you're helping the movie, the game. Still feeling Tomb Raider? Or have I thrown you off your trail?
You really had me with the first one. Okay, give me the third one.
All right, number 3 is needs less gun-charted and more fun.
I knew that I was right. I knew I was right. No, it's Tomb Raider, and it's got to be the 2013 one because I always talk about it's got to be the 2013 reboot because I always talk about how that one's my favorite out of all 3 of them and how I hate Rise of the Tomb Raider and how that one and Shadow are the best out of the 2 and Rise of can go in a well.
You are correct. It is Tomb Raider. You got it. Number 1. Chats in the Cloud 2013 is indeed the pick. I knew it was too easy for you.
I had it on the first go.
Yes, you nailed it. I think that might be the first prompter that we've had. I don't think we've had anybody get one on the first clue. So major chats in the cloud. Who else in the chat got it, and when did you get it? Did you know it from the first one? As soon as Mayfly said it, you were like, yep, because it was a bit of a dead giveaway there with that one. But I couldn't, it was so funny. I couldn't not put that one in there because I loved that review so much, because that is so true. Even if you love this game, it is ridiculous how she pretends it's her first mission. And so you could be like the coolest person, the best gamer, annihilate people. And then the next scene will be like, oh, I'm really scared of whatever I'm about to do. And it's like,
See, it's just, well, it's after she does her first kill, which is my favorite cutscene in any interactive cutscene in any video game ever, 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 still to this day. It's after she does her first murder of a human ever. Then she really buckles down. And it's such a good character moment. And it's so good. It's so good.
Well, it was a fun one to look through the reviews. This is one that I didn't really mind the reviews. There were some mean ones, but for the most part, it was just hilarious, because this is a game that is a bit of a mixed bag on some of the memeier stuff, especially with those death cutscenes and all the good stuff. So a fun one, as I said, at Chats in the Clap, major Chats in the Clap for getting it on prompt number 1. But with that, we're going to get into my personal favorite segment of the show.
At this point in nerd history.
All right, we are at this point in nerd history. This is everything that came out on this day: video game, movies, TV shows, all that kind of stuff. August 13th throughout time and space. I'll start with games for us tonight. Back in 2021, Hades was first released. In 2019, the phone game Dicey Dungeons. If you haven't played it, a very, very fun roguelike. And then in 1991, no big deal, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System is released in America. Super Mario World and F-Zero are, of course, in box there, depending on which one you got. So pretty huge deal in 1991. Let's take it away next with some movies.
2021 had a Free Guy. 2010 had The Expendables, Eat, Pray, Love.
I think that's just saying what day it came out or something.
On Friday.
I guess.
And Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which is the reason I wanted to do this section. 2008 had Tropic Thunder. 2004 had Yu-Gi-Oh! And Alien vs. Predator.
There you go. Some pretty good ones in there.
Yeah.
And then our random fun fact. This is one that if any of you have ever used the term gaslighting or know of the term gaslighting, this is where that originates from. 1867, Under the Gaslight by Augustin Daly opens in New York City. So pretty cool stuff there. I personally clicked with Scott Pilgrim, of course, but then this also brought up a huge memory in me with Yu-Gi-Oh!, the movie that came to theaters in 2004. I would have been in like 4th grade and in my Yu-Gi-Oh! Phase. And I remember like, I think it wouldn't have been the right time of year. So it wouldn't have been my birthday, but there was some event with this one that we went as a large group to go see Yu-Gi-Oh! And I remember the movie being all right. It was not that great, but I was so hype. I feel like I remember them being in the McDonald's boxes or maybe the Burger King box, one of them. And like, this was huge. I did not know it came out the same day as AVP, which is funny because I also do think AVP is a hilarious film to go back and watch. I still super enjoy that one amongst them, but interesting things there. And Phoenix does mention seeing Free Guy. Free Guy was a lot of fun. It doesn't feel like it came out in 2021. It feels so much more recent than that. But alas, apparently it did. And then some pretty good games in there. Yeah. So there we go. That has been at this point in nerd history, the stuff that came out on this day throughout time and space. With that, we're going to get into our next segment of the show. Time for upcoming releases. We're going to talk about some of the things that are coming out in the next week or so, or maybe they've already come out, like one of mine. But we're going to go back and forth and talk about some things that we are excited for. I am super excited for Watchmen Chapter 1. Chapter 1 covers, of course, the storyline of the original graphic novel in an alternate world history set in 1985. The murder of a government-sponsored superhero draws his outlawed colleagues out of retirement and into a mystery that threatens to upend their personal lives and the world itself. It looks like a fairly honest and true to form telling of the original story. It doesn't look like they're doing any kind of leaps beyond it, but instead just creating a really good adaptation. So if you like Watchmen, and I very much do, I'm looking forward to this one quite a bit.
My first one's Return to Moria, and that doesn't come out until August 27th. Dwarves, Lord of the Rings, Fourth Age, Middle Earth. It's all pretty up my alley.
This is not, what's the one that's the like farming sim one?
That's the Shire one.
Yes.
The something Tales of the Shire.
Yeah, this is survival, not.
Yeah, this is survival. Yeah, I watched when Funhouse, RIP Funhouse, they got super early access to it and played it a while ago. And I thought it looked real fun. Of course, you need like a group of friends to like really, really play, but it looks pretty, so I'll probably watch people play it.
Very nice. I
Yeah.
like to hear it and always enjoy a good adventure into the mines there. I already mentioned it once, but Alien Romulus is one that I'm excited for. I really do like the Alien universe. I enjoy the stories that they tell and the way that they tell them. I even like Prometheus, but don't tell anyone. While scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonizers come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. I'm always looking forward to another adventure into that universe. So that is a big one for me. And I think it comes out this week, this Friday, or maybe today, soon. With a popcorn button.
I was having issues finding things that came out soon. So my next one is Beyond Handwell, which is a horror spooky spooks shooter set in Westminster, London, and it looks absolutely terrifying. Will I actually play it? Maybe. Will I more than likely watch somebody play it and get scared out of my britches? Way more likely. And that doesn't come out till the 25th. So
Very nice. My final one is one that's already come out, but since TWIG was not in existence, I haven't been able to mention it. But it is a new farming sim that is in the vein of Stardew and is trying to be even a bit hungrier than Stardew, which I think Stardew was already pretty hungry of a game. But Fields of Mystria came out last week into early access. It pitches as starting your new life, build the farm of your dreams as you discover a world brimming with possibilities, magic, romance, and adventure all await you in this nostalgic farming life sim RPG. If you like farming games, I'm hearing good enough things about it. And I really am just holding out to the not buying it because everybody I see play it. I'm so interested and curious, but I understand that early access doesn't have marriage options and candidates yet. And so I kind of want to wait. And I'm trying to hold off because I really want to enjoy it and it looks like a lot of fun. If you've not seen, the character models are like 90s anime, they like Sailor Moon-esque, and it's super fun. And so I'm down for it, and it looks like it's, like I said, just hungrier in general. I think you can swim in this one. You can like go underwater and things. So like a big deal for a farming sim to continue innovating and trying to do new things in a pretty saturated market.
yeah, nice. My last one is like Road 96, but with robots. It's called Dustborn. Comes out on August 20th. It is a single-player, narrative-driven adventure. I think it was IGN I got the little snippy bit off of, and it was like, hope, love, friendship, robots. It looks so fun.
Yeah, we've seen a trailer for it.
So good. Yeah.
I don't know when, but we've seen a trailer for it because I had it on my wish list on Backlogged. So
It just the aesthetics remind me of Road 96, and the narrative reminds me of Road 96 with the divided states of America and all of that like type of thing, that sort of narrative flow, and it looks like so much fun.
Yeah.
So that's out on the 20th.
If it gets good enough like scores, I'm bumping it up the list. If not, then it will go on the roulette, and hopefully I'll end up getting it eventually. But if it does well, then I could see it being one that a nerdy sermon could be written on, and so I might make an excuse to go ahead and play it. Time will tell.
Yeah.
But there we go. Those are our upcoming things. Let us know in the chat if you have anything that you're excited for that is coming out in the next week or so. I would love to hear them and be excited with you as well. Or just go over to our Discord and talk about it there, and we can nerd out about all the fun things that are coming out in that space as well. With that, we're going to get into our final segment of the show. It is time for Meme of the Week. Our meme this week comes from our own Sugar Haiku, who shared this meme from the corporate lawyer there. Me mentally preparing for the task I'm about to be burdened with after being sent a hey on Teams. And it is a little clip from the Olympics. You gotta love it. Gotta love just the disdain, the dread, the despair, dare I say, of the Teams ping.
That's two of my coworkers in specific every time I message them about something. That's probably what they look like.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's definitely how I feel like I'm on the other end of that one as well, of like, I'm the person that annoys because
Uh-huh.
I'm using Slack right now for a thing that I'm in, and I feel like I am like, let's talk, everybody, and they do not want to talk to me. So I am very much being the annoying side character of this adventure in particular, and I am that hay. But alas, we'll get there someday and figure those things out. But this has been Twig. This has been the wonderful gathering of the Week in Geek. We've gone right up to the hour, so that the pacing of this episode has gone fantastically. And I hope that you've all had fun watching this one. If you wanted to be considered for our meme of the week, I forgot to say that. If you wanted to be considered for our meme of the week, the way to do that is to engage with our Memes and Goofs channel over on our Discord. I look at the past week. I typically look at the one that has the most reactions. This week was super tough. There were a ton of good ones. And so I wound up choosing the most recent one that got the most reacts. So this was pretty challenging. So that'll be an interesting thing to see. But if you would like to be considered for meme of the week, make sure to take advantage of that channel. Now, as we wrap up the show, I'm going to go ahead and give our guest Mayfly a chance for any shout outs, things that you want to name. The time is yours as we close out the show.
Thanks for our new follow, Change the Party. Appreciate that. You just popped here at the end of stream. I am on Discord sometimes. That's pretty much it. I don't really exist anywhere else. And I barely exist there sometimes. But yeah, sometimes I'm also on here. So that's it.
Very good. Well, I hope that everybody will consider checking us out over on Discord, where you can chat with fun folks like myself and Mayfly and a lot of the folks that are in the chat as well. This has been Twig, your weekly geekly family news show delivered live on twitch.tv/checkpointchurch each and every week, keeping your family connected to the world of nerdy news. If you watched this far, you likely enjoyed this one. So remember to give us a 5-star on the podcast app. Make sure you subscribe on that podcast app too, because my offer remains. If we can get 100 subscribers over on Spoofy, I will bring Twigs on the show. It will happen.
Real
Click that like
Twigs.
button if you're on YouTube. Recommend the show to all your favorite nerds so that we can get there even faster. Folks, we appreciate all of our watchers, everybody that is a part of the show, that engages in the chat, does all those wonderful things. We're going to give a extra special shout out to our subscribers, the folks that do subscribe to the show. So I'm going to give a quick shout out to those in particular. Thank you to X Mayfly, HMan 1009, DGC 121996, Christina P, Elias Raven, Centurnal, Sneaky Pig 633, Wizen Lemur, Sugar Haiku, Mindful Marlena, Maybe 30 Bat, Xander Calrissian, Jate Live, Nerd Pastor Nate, Trombone Dog, Gobi Church, JM Leon 42, Bweesh, Twilight 27, Perspective, Coyote 42, Yakeem 4752, Deacon Shannon LS, The Phoenix 2192, and DJ Courageous, who subscribed during the stream. So thank you to all of you. I appreciate everybody that is a part of the show, but those that are giving their dollars to help support this ministry and the show that we put on, I appreciate that. Especially with that, is there Twig next week? Yes, there will in fact be Twig next week. For the foreseeable future, I think I'm going to be in town on Tuesdays, so I feel like we got a good thing going for a little bit for season 4, and we are going to end the show as we always do with our 3 things. Oh, nope. No! The ad break! Why would it come right now? You didn't even give me the chance to pause it. All right, we got to stall for a minute and a half because I don't want the non-subscribers to not hear that they matter.
Cam says ads are over.
Thank you, Cam. With that, we're going to end this with 3 things that we believe to be true about every single one of you out there. Whether you believe in God, don't believe in God, go to church, don't go to church, hate God or hate church, we still believe them to be true about each and every one of you. Number 1, that God loves you, like really, really loves you. Number 2, we love you. We want community with you. That's why we're doing this. That's why we stream ourselves. That's why we waited a minute and a half just to tell you this information, is because we love you. And number 3, that you, yes, you matter. You are a person of sacred worth. The world is a better place. Why? Because you are in it. With that, folks, we're going to let Mayfly go and eat some dinner, and we are going to see you over on the Discord, hopefully, or for our stream tomorrow, our lunch tomorrow, or all the things that we have going on in all the wonderful places. I look forward to seeing you wherever that turns out to be. Until next time, folks, bye-bye!